Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film, Fruitvale Station. Oscar Grant, who was infamously and horribly murdered by a police officer in the early morning hours of New Year's Eve on 2009 at the BART station of Fruitvale. The film is really about his whole day of New Year's Eve leading up to the infamous shooting. Because of Trayvon Martin and because of the event itself that it is based on is very politically charged. I actually don't agree Oscar Grant, the actual person, not the character in this film, but also the character in this film, the way he was murdered and the way, it's portrayed when a young black man is killed and they're like, oh, well, he was a thug, he smoked weed, because I guess that's reason enough to kill someone. And I've never really understood that methodology, because that to me doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think this film kind of relies on a lot of that, but I still like it. And so I am a little conflicted, because really this is not the kind of movie I like. This is kind of like an Oscar baity, acting over filmmaking type of film. And the director of this film, Ryan Coogler, isn't the strongest director. The cinematography is really weak, but the acting in this film is incredibly strong. Michael B. Jordan, who's someone who I've liked from The Wire to Friday Night Lights to Chronicle, has so much charisma in this film, it's infectious. This is the first time I've seen him play a lead in anything, and he's just so remarkable in it. And I really just love him as an actor and would see anything, because he has such a charisma and such a presence about himself. Even the weak notes of this film, he seems to get past. And I think as much as this film tries to make Oscar Grant kind of a saint at certain points, and it's a strong performance because he almost is cutting through the film like a knife and giving the film a more nuanced performance than maybe is really there in the writing and the directing. He's a very smart actor for being able to do that. And I think the same thing about Octavia Spencer, who plays his mom, and Melanie Diaz, who plays his girlfriend, Sofina. In some ways, it's really nice to just see us stuck alone with the character in this film of Oscar Grant, and him alone in his car at some points and contemplating his life and trying to get his job back. But in other times, I think it's very heavy-handed that this guy is changing things around. He is a good person. And the part where he's running in slow-mo with his daughter was particularly heavy-handed. The scene where he stops for gas and he meets this dog and he pets the dog, and then the dog gets hit by a car and he kind of holds the dog as it dies was far too much as well. It's just like very heavy-handed and very hammy. This film isn't really as interested in story. It's interested in making Oscar Grant a good person. It almost feels like this film is kind of justifying why it's a bad thing that he was murdered. I don't like that part of the film, but I like following the Oscar Grant character that Michael B. Jordan plays a lot. Sometimes it is heavy-handed, but I like this a lot more than a lot of Oscar bait pictures, in a way that I'm kind of surprised I liked it, because I'm like, this isn't the kind of film I would really like. If this was a King's Speech, I'd be totally turned off. And it's not the politics that I think affects me about it. It's Michael B. Jordan's performance. And it's interesting, when I watched the film, when the end title card came up after the whole film was over, the first name that came up was Michael B. Jordan. It's not directed by Ryan Coogler. It's not produced by Forrest Whitaker. And that says a lot about what this film's intent is. And that's kind of one of the things I dislike about Oscar films, is they're primarily about actors and not so much about story. Often they're weaker films. And I think this is a weaker film. I don't think this is a very strong movie. It has a lot of holes in it. It's almost TV movie level in some elements. It's like an arty TV movie. It's a weird thing. I think Ryan Coogler, he does seem to understand film and get what's going on. And I think there's a smarter guy at work. It's just he's too new right now. He's too raw. Sometimes that rawness is interesting. Sometimes it's a little too naive. I don't like some of the things he did structurally with the film. I really didn't like that the film started with the video footage of Oscar Grant, because I felt like it would have made the emotional impact of that scene stronger if we're slowly, leisurely leading up to it. But having that before intensifies the foreshadowing, which there's way too much foreshadowing. This isn't a bad film. And what it's saying politically is kind of sad, because it's trying to answer people who have really bizarre and fucked up explanations on why, like, Trayvon Martin or Oscar Grant should be murdered. And that's just kind of sickening that, first off, that you'd have those beliefs, and secondly, that you'd make a film to answer those beliefs that just seem ridiculous. And I kind of felt like it could have come from a better, smarter, intellectual place than that. He's kind of going in more of a neo-realism way, but the explanation behind it isn't realism, it's very pointed. I thought it was very emotional, and it touched me and made me think about things emotionally that I don't think a lot of movies do. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're a good movie if you can do certain things with certain scenes. This film has very strong acting, and that's really great, and I loved seeing Michael B. Jordan. I love seeing a lot of the actors in this film. It's just a little too raw, a little too naive in what it's trying to do. I do agree, whether it's Oscar Grant or Trayvon Martin or whoever, them being shot is just a really horrible thing, but I don't think films like this are accomplishing what they intend to accomplish. I think they're not really helping what they think they're helping. It is certainly an interesting Oscar bait kind of movie. It is a little pointed in what it's trying to do, and sometimes I think that can be annoying, especially the scene when that slow-mo scene where he's running with his daughter. Is like, come on guys, it's like too much, far too much, too heavy-handed, and that's really what holds me back on this film. The other thing with that scene with the dog is, sure, it was too much, but it was really like something I'm not going to forget. There's certain things in this film I'm not really going to forget very easily, and there's certain things in this film that I'm going to still roll my eyes at. And that's kind of Fruitvale Station in a nutshell. It's very memorable, it's very emotional, it'll definitely make you think, but it's not a solid film. So if you have seen Fruitvale Station and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.